Hello, I'm David Williams. I work at Hams Hall and have done for the last 10 years. I'm a machinist and work on a normal shift pattern. We're on a 2-day trip across to Barcelona to go and watch the MotoGP, and not long before the accident we split up into 2 groups. As we were catching up with the lead group, I glanced down at my glove and noticed a small hole. I looked up and I then went into the back of one of my friends on his motorbike, flying over the handlebars and headbutting him in the back of his head. He went sliding down the carriageway whilst I went sliding into the central reservation. Pelvis took the brunt of the force and secondly hit my leg on the central reservation. I gave myself a little check over. I felt fine. I then went to stand up, where then one of my friends ran over telling me I should stay still. I remember then lying there waiting for an ambulance, and the police arrived, and I was thinking, I don't need a police, I need the ambulance as soon as. At this time I didn't feel any pain until I was rolled onto the stretcher, and as soon as I was in the ambulance they sedated me there and then, of which I then spent the next 5 days in a medically induced coma and the following 4 weeks in intensive care.
I was at home with my friend when I received a phone call from one of Dave's friends who was on the bike trip with him, and he just said that Dave had been involved in an accident and that I needed to get to Barcelona straight away. So I convinced my friend to come with me, luckily. Weirdly, on the plane she just happened to say, what would you do if you had life-changing injuries? And even looking back now, we still don't know why she said that. Because we weren't next of kin, we had to wait for Dave's parents to arrive. They got a later flight than us, so it was a bit of an agonising wait. I think it was a shock to find him in ICU. I was expecting to turn up and he'd have a few bandages on, maybe his leg in plaster, and I'd tell him off, and then we'd have a laugh about it and try and sort out how to get him home. So that was a big shock. Obviously I was relieved that he was alive, but it was upsetting to see the extent of his injuries. When he did finally wake from his induced coma, we weren't able to talk to him about the extent of his injuries at that time, so it was even more difficult to sort of just pretend that everything was alright.
Yeah, it wasn't then until a week later when the doctor came in and asked me what I knew about my injuries. I went through and told her I knew about my fractured pelvis, I knew I'd damaged my kidneys, I knew I'd severed my femoral artery, and then I got a bit stuck when I said I've hurt my leg, and she looked at me and asked what do I know about my leg, and then it kind of hit me that I didn't know anything about my leg. I just assumed it wasn't a big deal, and then that's when she told me that I'd amputated it at the scene. Luckily my parents, my girlfriend at the time, was there. They were strong and supportive for me. And remember, one of the first things I said was that at least my socks will last twice as long. The first 4 weeks were in intensive care, with another 2.5 weeks in the trauma ward. During those 2 weeks I went through some physio and gym time at the Barcelona hospital, getting used to being upright again and progressing my time sitting in a wheelchair before they let me fly home. At the time we were in a rented property, so we had the occupational therapist come around the house and assess what adaptations needed to be made, and luckily the landlord at the time was very accommodating and let us do what we wanted really. When I was then discharged from hospital, I remember getting into the car and just feeling terrified, because for the first time in the last 2.5 months I was practically on my own. I had no doctors, no nurses to come and help me with everything I needed. The first night was a struggle. It took over 30 minutes just to climb the stairs, and pain was a big issue. I remember in the early days counting down the minutes until I could take my next meds just to reduce the pain. And it wasn't until a few days later where I was lying in bed and it just hit me, why did this happen to me? And that really upset me. Then after a decent night's sleep, I woke up refreshed and ready to get on with all the challenges that I had ahead of me. I feel throughout my recovery, what helped me develop my resiliency and my mental health strength was a number of different things. The support from my now wife, my family, close friends, they really helped by just being there. My mental health has always been quite strong anyway, so my belief of myself getting better and getting stronger each day really helped. But even now, if I do feel low, there's always people I can just text or call, go see. Down to work, there was no pressure for me to get back. No one was rushing me or asking for a date of my return. But when I felt that I was ready to get back to work, the help and support from my occupational therapist from my rehab centre, the help I've had from the entire physiotherapy, the guys who deal with building up my prosthetics, they've all been hugely supportive. I've had a lot of support from my occupational therapist nurse at Uniper. My team leader at the time was very supportive and everyone was very accommodating. Again, there's just no pressure. Everything was done in my own time. And I went back when I was ready and I felt that I was fit enough. Since the accident, I'm a lot more confident within myself. I think being in a Spanish hospital with Spanish doctors and nurses helped me have to explain myself and overcome the language barrier. Keeping to appointments and getting myself out and about has also helped that as well. In the early days, I was requested to attend some counselling sessions. I think personally, for myself, that didn't really do much for me in terms of helping me progress or get stronger. But I think from a medical point of view, they wanted to be reassured that I am as strong and capable as I was letting on. I've also attended a charity workshop at my rehab centre, which was hosted by a charity called Limpower. That introduced me to new amputees which I hadn't met before, which was a little enlightening into the different ways of which way your mental state can go. There's a couple of guys there who didn't seem to be coping with their situation as well as other people were, and seeing that was quite difficult because I've managed to get through as strong as I have. I never tend to be embarrassed or shy about my leg. In fact, I'll wear shorts all year round. It's not so much to show off, it's more of people to understand just by looking at me why I might be walking a bit differently, and they do give me that extra yard or so I get by my daily activities without any issues. Before my accident, my wife and I used to enjoy going on long walks and going cycling together, and since the accident, that's when I became interested in my wheelchair basketball. I think to cope and adjust, you have to just find alternative ways of doing things to overcome your disability. Previously, I didn't have the confidence to go and try new things.
But now he doesn't like anyone telling him he can't do anything. And when we first had the wheelchair, it was really difficult because I was pushing him and I missed the fact we weren't able to walk side by side holding hands.
Yeah, and now it's been over 3 years since the accident, and now we can go for long walks hand in hand. When I first had my accident, I gave Ali the opportunity to think about our relationship and whether she wants to leave me, because in my head she hadn't signed up for what was ahead and to be my carer.
I actually think that weirdly the accident has made our relationship stronger, and it didn't even cross my mind, not for 1 second, that I would leave him. And in fact it actually made me realise how much I did love him. I think initially I was worried about Dave's mental well-being and whether he'd be able to cope with all the challenges that he was having to face and all the changes he had to make to his life, but he's done it fantastically. Couldn't be more proud.
And in the last 3 years since the accident, we've bought a house, we've got married, we've had a baby, and it hasn't all been plain sailing, but I'm fit, stronger now, and we're looking forward to the future.